Welcome back to Brian Knows Movies. I want to talk about The Whale. Now, this won't be a typical review that I normally do that has the structure and all those types of things, because I really don't know what to make of this film. So the movie The Whale is coming from A24. It's been limited released these last few weeks. It is a Oscar contender and is directed by the legendary Darren Aronofsky. He's done a lot of films that have much critical acclaim. I like a lot of his stuff. I loved Black Swan and how visceral that was. The Wrestler is one of my favorite dramas of the past 20 years. Requiem for a Dream will just destroy you. But then he's also done things that didn't really hit for me, like Mother was just really out there. I love The Fountain. I forgot he did The Fountain with Hugh Jackman. He's done a lot of good films, and he's done some things that have missed the mark for me. But anyway, he creates this film based off of this play about a man named Charlie, who's played by Brendan Fraser. Charlie is morbidly obese. He's 600 pounds, and he got to this size because he's dealing with grief and loss and guilt over the loss of his partner. It seemed like he was starving himself, was like bulimic or something. They don't really say directly what happened to him. And then he commits suicide. He jumps off a bridge. So he's living with that guilt and that shame, but also trying to put his life back together. Well, he starts to suffer congestive heart failure, and he has no insurance. All he has is Liz, played by Chau, who's a nurse and his best friend in the movie, that comes over to take care of him. So she's the one that determines he's having congestive heart failure. He refuses to go to the hospital. He refuses to go to the emergency room, and he just knows that he's going to die within a week. So he's trying to get his emotional affairs in order. So anyway, we're going through the story. You're learning to see the optimism as well as the hurt within the Charlie character played by Brendan Fraser, and you're sympathize and empathize with the character all the way throughout, rooting for him to be able to make amends with his daughter and also to become healthy again, to start to take care of himself and hopefully beat this thing that he's dealing with in terms of this eating disorder where he's just binge eating out of depression and guilt. Brendan Fraser's great. It looks like it's going to be a three-man race for Best Actor for the Academy Awards. I heard that it was going to be Brendan Fraser, Austin Butler for Elvis, and Colin Farrell for Banshees of Inisherin. And now that I've seen all three movies, I agree with that, even though I have various opinions about the actual films those actors are in. So he does an amazing, multiple-layered character. You deeply feel compassion for him. You want him to be able to be himself again, fully realized, even though you don't really know if that fully realized old person is. They just kind of hint at it that he was a man that loved hard. He loved his partner, so much so that he actually left his family for him and had to deal with the loss of a partner who really committed suicide because of shame and guilt of being gay and growing up in a evangelical world, and that God hated him. Chau is amazing. She was amazing in The Menu in a different way, but this is award type of acting here. You get to learn why she's so connected to Charlie and why she loves Charlie so much and why their relationship is so symbiotic almost in terms of how she helps him to stay alive, but also she's enabling him by bringing him 2-3 meatball subs at a time and whole buckets of fried chicken and those types of things that she's doing to placate his depression. So after watching the movie, I felt some sort of way about it. I think at this point it's been pretty well publicized, the arc of Brendan Fraser. And I loved Brendan Fraser when I was a kid. He was the one against the Mummy and all those films, George of the Jungle. That's when I was growing up, right? And I love the guy. He disappeared, and you find out why he disappears, and you see his heart on these different circuits, and then you go to see the performance, and I wonder if some of him and the empathy I feel for Brendan Fraser, the person, leaks into that performance. So I thought about it, and I'm like, man, this is a really good performance, even if I didn't know all that stuff about Brendan Fraser. I think that he really goes someplace that I've never seen him go before. There is a physical toll that I was not expecting when I went to see this film that he has to do in terms of the prosthetics that he has to wear, the way that he has to move. He really seems to have done the research and actually enveloped his character wholeheartedly. He's always been a very physical actor, but this is a physical type of performance in a much different way than what we saw in the 90s and 2000s from Brendan Fraser. I think that the accolades he's getting is worthy of merit regardless of his comeback story. So it's not that, but it feels a little icky. I try to stay away from a lot of the news around movies until I see it, but I did read the Roxane Gay article in the New York Times about how this film was fatphobic. And Roxane Gay, she's not a film critic, but she is a culture critic and a social critic that I respect a lot. She's a professor and she has a lot of things to say about feminism and blackness and identity that I respect. She's also a bigger woman, if I can be candid about it. I mean, I'm not I'm not LeBron James over here, but in terms of someone who would understand fatphobia because they face fatphobia all the time, if she says that it's fatphobic, I have to pause and say, okay, is this really a fatphobic performance or film? What I felt watching the film, the prosthetics and the way that he was able to seem to give the character some dignity, in my opinion. I never felt like I was looking down on the character because he was 600 pounds. I felt like there was a sympathy there because he was 600 pounds. And also, like I said, the prosthetics, he doesn't look silly. It's not like an Austin Powers fat suit type of thing. It's really well done, and it seems like they were trying to be as careful as possible portraying this character. But Roxane Gay, like I said, she's a leader that I listen to, and there's been others that have said the same thing. So that gives me cause to pause. Darren Aronofsky said in an interview that he was looking for somebody to play this role for 10 years. And he said specifically that he was looking for a star to play this role for 10 years before he found Brendan Fraser and thought that he was right for the role. And it got me thinking that he was very picky about who he wanted. He did not consider identities, it seems like, when he was looking for a person. He was looking just more for the characteristics of the Charlie character that would relate on screen. Kindness and that gentleness and that sincereness and authenticity and that can be brought to this role. He felt like Brendan Fraser encapsulated that both as an actor and as a man, and that's why he picked him. It brings up a question. I'm not mad that Brendan Fraser was cast for that reason, and I think that Brendan Fraser was right to take advantage of the opportunity to work with Darren Aronofsky and make such a important film. But to me, it also highlights unconsciously the opportunities of gay actors in this space. Darren Aronofsky said he was looking for a star. How many stars, movie stars especially, can you think of that are gay, and then limit that down to somebody who you're looking for who's supposed to be a larger man? How many movie stars do you know have gotten the chance to reach stardom and would even be on Darren Aronofsky's radar? When we talk about institutional systemic issues, LGBT members, I understand why they were out on Brendan Fraser getting this role, even though I haven't heard anybody say a bad word about Brendan Fraser. Most people are praising this performance. If he takes this and he gets all the awards and accolades for playing a fat gay man when there were fat gay men that were ready to play that role, I understand why that would irk some people. I think about how Cleopatra was played by a white woman and all these other things that happened way back in the dawn of movie making. Blackface and redface and yellowface and all those types of things. Are we seeing that again in 2022 with this character? I don't know. I need you guys to kind of workshop this out with me. I don't know how to feel about the film making part of this movie. I felt like the performance was genuine. I left that movie very moved, very touched, and very much relating to the grief that the Charlie character was feeling, the guilt the Charlie character was feeling. Brendan Fraser was amazing in this film, but also everything leading up to it, the environment around the film. Was this done as delicately as it should have been? I also say in terms of the fatphobia thing, one of the parts that felt the worst to me was something happens that causes him to go into this huge binge eating episode where he's eating 3 or 4 pizzas, sandwiches, bunch of chips, candy, like everything all at once, like over a night. It's like somebody who was just drinking themselves to death. It's really, really graphic. It's one of the most visceral things that I've seen this year in film, and there was a David Cronenberg film that came out this year, if that's to give you any kind of comparison. It was like, oh my God, please stop doing this to yourself. But is that something that could be considered fatphobic? It made me think of a show that I think is really fatphobic, and that's My 600 Pound Life, right? How they kind of parade these people out to show a eating disorder, but not show it in terms of an empathetic way. It's almost like zoo animals, like, look at these people, look at this. You know, it was really unnerving, that scene. And it was supposed to be. And that's probably the most Darren Aronofsky part of the film, because usually he does very visceral things. This is very muted for Darren Aronofsky, in my opinion. But that scene was very much like a scene that I could see in other films. Anyway, what's my rating? See it, stream it, or skip it. I'm going to give The Whale a stream it. Look, I love Brendan Fraser's performance. I authentically do. Even knowing the backgrounds and the criticisms of his casting, what he did in the role, he did very effectively and very well. And I think that it may be my favorite male performance of the year. I have to think about it. I love Chau in this movie too. I definitely think she should be nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this film, given all of the other performances that I've seen this year. Sadie Sink, she was very one note. I don't understand why she was given some of the direction she was given. I mean, she's supposed to be this teenager that's just this out of control, and she's very out of control, but it's in a very one note way. I don't really like it. I didn't like how they didn't really address parts of his identity. It just shows that he left his family to go be with a man that he fell in love with. Did he always know that he was gay? Or is this a discovery that he went through after he got married? The wife kind of alludes to maybe you just got married just because you wanted a kid, but you knew you were gay. And they never really dive deeper into that. There are some flaws that I'm used to with Darren Aronofsky characters that are not placed on Charlie or not felt by Charlie because Charlie's just so likable. And maybe because Brendan Fraser is so likable. Putting my critical perspective on it, I don't know if those parts of the film work. So I'm gonna say stream it. I think that it's a great movie to watch at home. It's broken records in the box office, so if you do want to go see it, obviously, be my guest. But this is a stream it for me. I need to know what you guys think. If you do see it, what parts did you have issues with? Do you think that the criticisms about the casting are correct? Do you think that there are fatphobic scenes or the whole movie's fatphobic? I would love your opinion on this because I'm trying to learn just like everybody else is trying to learn, and also be authentic to the way that I feel when I see movies, because movies, it's art, and art is feeling, and art is subjective. So I want to be honest about those things too. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you continue to watch my videos and share my videos. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Thanks so much, and I'll see you at the theaters next week.